Hello, welcome to the live stream. That's a bonus live stream that I'm calling the missing bit. And the reason I'm calling it the missing bit is because yesterday I started on my usual Friday live. I started a workshop on portrait painting, and it's a 4 week workshop. And the plan was, and usually plans go just fine. The plan was to do 4 1 hour sessions because I'm usually on for an hour on Friday, and 4 1 hour sessions where we were going to, over the course of 4 weeks, so over the course of 4 hours, we were going to produce a portrait painting going right from the start to having a completed painting. So this was a great plan, I thought. And then in yesterday's live stream, I got 30 minutes in to the hour, and without my realizing it, somehow I was bumped out of my live streaming studio, and you only got a half an hour instead of an hour. So I'm really glad this was a free course because I don't have to deal with you know, people complaining and saying, I want at least half my money back. But you will get your money's worth anyway, even though it's free, because this is the missing bit. And you'll laugh at this because yesterday I didn't know I was bumped out until I went to turn the live stream off after an hour and I realized my screen had gone black. And when I looked at it, I went, oh, that's really funny. I'm not in StreamYard Studio properly. It's just showing a black screen. So I had recorded the whole hour. So I had kept going for another half an hour and covered the rest of the material. So I was sort of thinking afterwards, I looked at the live stream and I thought, yeah, they'd have enough there to get to where I need them to get just in half an hour because we covered a lot even in a half an hour. But I wasn't satisfied with that. So I said, okay, I'll put in the missing bit. I'll just do an extra live stream and I'll put in the missing bit. So that's what you have today, the missing bit, the end basically of yesterday's live stream. Now, if you're somebody who hasn't seen the first workshop of the portrait painting workshop yet, which is yesterday's live stream, you could watch that first, or you could just watch today's and then go back and watch the beginning. You'll sort of get the hang of it because I'm going to do a slight recap before I cover the last two skills that I really wanted to cover for you to have a really good experience doing this preparatory drawing, this is my example preparatory drawing for the for your portrait. And our portrait, in case you didn't see yesterday's one, is the sitter for it is provided by this guy, Bruno Salvadori, over on pexels.com, where you can download photos from very good photographers. They have a great selection of photos. Um, Free to use, obviously there are certain restrictions on making money out of things and everything without permission. But, you're allowed use their images and, do works of art and everything from them. But you can tip the guy if you want when you're downloading the image. The download link is below this video and below part one of the workshop, yesterday's live stream. So if you go back on the live tab, you'll see it. It's the previous live stream to this. Okay. So what we covered in that was kind of three steps. And when things cut out on me, we were on the third of the three. So it's kind of the third step is the bit that I wanted to go into some detail on. And just a very quick recap of what we did. The first step was figuring out a thumbnail that you wanted to base your composition on. So you would have done a few thumbnails um, from the downloaded photo that you have, a nice high resolution photo that you downloaded, and you have it up on a computer screen, and you're figuring out what you like about it and how you feel about the composition, and do you want to go with that composition or do you want to change it around a bit. For mine, I actually did change it around a bit after doing some thumbnails to figure out what I liked in it, what I didn't like, and so on. And in your thumbnails, you can do them as small, quick sketches. Put a little frame around them then after sketching it, and you could have do a bit of a tonal filling in of shading on it, but you don't go into huge detail in that one. But step two was kind of the problem solving stage, right? This is when you're getting into more detail about the sitter and the environment and how that all works. And I had a black and white grayscale image of it because I knew we were going to do a tonal study on this, um, getting a black and white version to work from as well as terribly handy. But um, you can see from this that there's a lot of difficulty in terms of arms and things like that. Now, luckily, yesterday's live stream I did get to talk to you a little bit about perspective, because you need to use a little bit of perspective if you're putting in the background has some windows and things in it which recede into the distance. So I covered that in yesterday's live stream. But one of the missing bits that I want to cover today was to do with getting body angles correct, right? Because you're going to have to produce a bigger than your thumbnail drawing to transfer onto a painting surface to do your painting. And anatomically, there are challenges in that which you are going to have to figure out in order to get things in the right place and looking right. So, I was saying that it's handy to have a little bit of tracing paper that you can actually, it'll help you with your analysis of, in particular, the arms and the shoulder positions, because arms can be quite tricky to do. And I was showing you how holding up a ruler to the angle of something can um, allow you to figure out how our shoulders are sloped and how long arms are in what position in relation to each other. And at that stage, when I was getting into that kind of detail and showed you quite a lot on that, that was the 30-minute point where the live stream did something peculiar. And it's still a bit of a mystery what it did, but it dropped the connection or something. I don't know. So I want to do a little bit more on that now. So we're still working fairly small at this stage, and you might even want to trace the outline from the screen so you see a very simple version of what the arms do, and then you can come along and analyze that. And what I was suggesting was that um, you draw your egg shape for a head, right? And the head is tilted to the side, and the center line of the head is off to way off to the right because she's looking over that direction. Um, the center line of the body is handy to get because even though this side is hidden by hair, you can run your pencil up it and see that the center line of her neck runs up somewhere along the outside of her eye socket there. Okay, so you can kind of figure that out handy enough. Now, figuring out shoulder positions is literally holding something up, a piece of paper or a ruler, up to your screen and seeing what angle it lies along the shoulders by. And then you drop that angle down to your page to draw. Or, you put it in on top of a little tracing. If you're having difficulty with it, it'll help you see it easier. So now you've got a point for the shoulders, and you're able to do more measurements and figure out more angles. So you can figure out lengths from shoulder to elbow, for example, and you can also figure out what angles the arms are at, because this arm is actually out a little bit, isn't it? Look at the angle of that. It's not a straight angle, right angle to the page. It's slightly slanted out a bit. And what I've done is to break it down to its simplest thing. We've got a center point for the body, we've got the shoulders, and we're building a wireframe, really, aren't we? So if we run from the center point of the shoulder downwards at the correct angle, we can figure out, the rough whereabouts of where the elbow is, even though it's slightly hidden in the photo. You know that the elbow bones are going to be in here. Yeah, there's the outside where the elbow turns, and you've got two bones in the forearm coming down, and they actually twist over each other a little bit. So you get, as well as having muscle and things on the arm and fat, you've got some curves generated by the fact that those bones twist. So rather than get into all that detail, we're generalizing and breaking it down to its simplest element, which is a line down the center of the arm. And when you look at the other arm, if we were to measure it off the photo, say you have your photo on your screen, and you look at where the elbow is approximately, the other arm, there isn't too much foreshortening on it because it's about the same length. So even though this elbow is going to be much lower, and a lot of that is in shade, but you can see the little bit of light hitting it. This elbow is going to be lower than the other elbow. The angle of the one elbow in relation to the other elbow is lower because one shoulder is lower than the other. When you drop the line down, you see the angles are about the same. So that is helpful too for placing the length of the arms. And forearms, depending on, like, it could be foreshortened. If this was, you could have the hand here and the whole arm would be foreshortened. You wouldn't see the forearm at all. But the arms are down in this, and there isn't a huge amount of foreshortening on them in this one. They go fairly straight. And if we look at distances there to wrist, say, elbow to wrist, they're about the same as well. So that helps you place the lower arms. And of course, you've got your angle trick of holding the ruler or the piece of paper up to the screen where you have the photo on it, and you're looking at the angle, and you drop that angle down onto your piece of paper, or you trace it if you're making life easy for yourself, and run a line through the center of the forearm. Then you're coming along afterwards, and you can see how your outline relates. Now, you could just trace that off the screen, but I was saying yesterday, there's no point really, I don't think, in blowing the image up and doing the whole thing traced, because you could, if you run into terrible difficulties getting the arms right, you can zoom in on the image and do this kind of thing, trace the outline off the screen. And uh, some of this is traced. I think I went off the rails here. I started doing something else, changing the hand position or something, because I wanted something different to happen in my portrait. I didn't want to have a portrait that's just copying a photo. I wanted to really make it my own. So a couple of things changed between the photo and my drawing. And that's okay to do. There's no rule saying you have to make it look exactly like the photo. You're not really a copyist. You're a painter, you know. So my final drawing. How do I get from doing this kind of working out on a small scale up to this size drawing, which is the size I want for my paint? I don't really want to paint on that small a scale because um, there's a lot of difficulty in painting a head that small. You're there messing around with tiny little brushes and you nearly become a miniaturist at that stage, you know. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to go too much smaller than this. You'd have the same issue if you're making a head bigger than life size, you're gonna be into distortion issues then, but you will kind of naturally maybe gravitate towards an ideal size, hopefully. And but I would recommend that you not go too much smaller than this, to avoid those kind of difficulties. So let's say that we ended up. I'm looking for a particular sheet of paper here that I have. Yeah, this one. Let's say that we end up with a small drawing that's more or less anatomically correct. How do we get that up to a bigger scale? Well, the old trick that you might remember from if you ever had art lessons is that you make a little grid on something. And what I did was I decided in my composition where I wanted the figure, and I decided that by working out this thumbnail, the approximate placement of the figure, I decided that this halfway point across my canvas or my sketch pad, it's going to be for me, um, the halfway point was her face, the edge of her face was going to kind of touch that halfway point. I actually didn't have it far enough across here. So I ended up deciding on this, that it would make life easy for me to do it this way. So, you know, you might be gridding it up differently depending on what composition you decided you liked. But basically, if I draw a line down halfway across my page and halfway down this way, we've got a grid of 4, right? Then we can further subdivide that and have 4 more boxes in each section. And we can do things like get it straight by using a piece of paper, figuring out the halfway mark across, and then folding it and using the edge of the paper to get our straight line. If like me, you're not terribly good at doing straight line. But basically, the point of this is so that you can figure out for each little line of your drawing, when you look at the shape of it within that grid, you can then reproduce that shape in your bigger version of the grid. So each box, you're making each box bigger. And on this sheet of paper, which is the size of the sheet I'm going to be painting on, I've got my halfway across line and I've got my halfway down line. And then I've further subdivided those so that I've got two boxes within each box. And I think that's enough of a grid to be able to place things in it. As you can see, I've placed the hair by looking at the shape. It makes this kind of slanted rectangular shape there and place that in. Same with the neck. I figured out that's slightly more than halfway across to start the neck, and that this part of the shoulder here is kind of halfway up that. So you move around through all the boxes and figure out where things go vaguely using that method before you add more detail into your drawing. And then when you add more detail, you are going to end up with something like this, yeah, which is your finished tunnel drawing. Now, you're not going to just paint on top of that. This drawing is going to be a reference drawing for you. Now you had the reference photo on front of you, and you had the tonal version of it already because you're working from a tonal version of it to do the drawing. But it's much nicer to have your own tonal drawing to work from for the painting. So we want to keep this in one piece, this drawing. But what we want to do is we want to still be able to transfer that drawing onto the final piece of paper or canvas or whatever we're painting on, acrylic sketch pad, or acrylic canvas, or, you know, whatever you're painting on. So this is where tracing paper comes in awfully handy. because you can trace the outline of that figure. And I'll just show you. If I can get a white background to show this on, it would be better actually. I'll just show you how simple you go with that tracing. It's really, it's not a very finished drawing you're doing this time. This was the finished drawing, right? There was a lot of tonal information in this, and in yesterday's live stream, I briefly covered how you would shade with your pencil slightly on the side, and how you could use cross hatching if you wanted to go in different directions to keep deepening the tones. Cross hatching is terribly good way of covering ground quickly in a rough drawing. And to show you how it's done, you go in different directions. That's all I'm talking about. So that's kind of a mid-tone, right? If I want to go darker than that, I'll go another direction, and things get darker, don't they? If I want to go darker again, I can go back in the original direction, or at a slant to it, diagonal to it, and it can get darker. So it's quite a quick, efficient way to do tonal studies. So that's the way I've done this one. So you can actually see the lines going different directions here for my cross hatching. But this tonal analysis helps you so much when you're then on the painting working with color, because you have a few things you're working with painting. There's color, there's tone, and there's planes of different forms. Okay, and you've you've got the tones figured out already. So then when you're working with color, when you get into the right color range, you say the red dress, you're just saying to yourself then, okay, well, how dark is it? So tone is about how light or dark something is. So how dark am I making this red? And you're, depending on what way you're working, you might be adding more black in, or if, like me, you're experimenting with working with a limited palette, you're adding possibly complementary colors in to make it darker. So yeah, that's how you scale it up. And after the scaling up, producing the size, tonal drawing you want, you just gently trace over it. And then you'll come along to your new surface. And I'll just point out at this stage that if it's a canvas surface, um, the canvas has a little stretcher around the edge of it, doesn't it? So you might need to tuck in a book or magazines or something to the right height to support it in the background, because what you're going to do is you're going to be coming along and pressing down hard on that to transfer. And there are two ways to transfer your drawing onto um, your new surface that you're painting on. And the two ways are one, using carbon paper, which is this stuff here, the typist's friend, or used to be when you used to, in the old days, you used to tuck this in between two sheets of paper, and then you'd have the thing you were typing and the copy behind it. But you can still buy this, not so much in office supplies shops anymore, online, really. And it's not really an art material. In art material shops they don't really sell it, but it's more of an officey thing. But if you look up carbon paper online, you'll be able to find out where to get it. That's one way to do it. You put that in underneath with the powdery side down, and then you come along with a pen and you trace over your lines. You can indicate a little bit of shadow if you want, um, or just the edges of shadow, but you're not going to put in loads and loads of dark shading in this, because apart from anything else, the carbon comes out a dark color, and that can affect the color of your paint a little bit. And the other way I'm going to show you of transferring something can also dirty down your paint a little bit. The other way, if you don't have carbon paper, or you can't get it for some reason, is to do this, and that is on the back of your tracing. You go over it with a very soft pencil, and then come back to the front, and you can see that the line has slightly disappeared there. So if you're using this method, before you do it, use a pen to outline your drawing, a dark pen, so you can see it. I'll just show you where the line was. And then you come along with the pen and press fairly hard, and you should get a line coming out, yeah? So this transfers your drawing onto the surface you're going to paint on. There's one other item I want to show you, and I had it to hand earlier. I have so many pieces of paper. This is something else I had in the missing bit yesterday. I wanted to suggest to you that you get some kind of, even a makeshift portfolio out of all bits of cardboard you have around the place, to keep this your workshop, your portrait workshop drawings in, because it's very handy to have everything all together when you're working, particularly if you took a few days off between particular things, because I'm aware a lot of people are doing this workshop in in their in their own time, when they have time to do these things. Sorry, my piece of paper that I'm looking for is, see, it's nice. This shows how much work we have done already when you're wading through lots of pieces of paper, but you can see how many pieces can go missing then. So good idea to have some sort of a little portfolio to keep them in and keep them out of the way, so you're not tripping over them. This is the other thing I want to show you. And this is just a little bit of colour, but the little bit of colour is something that you could do to your surface before you transfer the drawing onto it. And that is put some sort of little background colour on it. And my colour is a very purpley colour because I'm working with a limited palette, and it's a mixture of blue and red. A limited palette is blue, red, yellow. And this is a blue-red mixture. And the reason I'm working with a purpley colour is you can't really see it too well in the photos, but there are a lot of areas in the photos that are a browny purpley colour. And that's going to help me with the overall harmony of the colour scheme. And it's going to remove some of the white of my paper so that my reading of other colours is going to be more accurate. So it's a helpful little device doing some sort of colour underpainting for something. I would advise you don't go with a big mad bright colour, not too bright. You go with one of the neutrals. So you're going either in a cool purple, blue, brown or something, or ochre even, one of the earth colors maybe. It's up to you. It's up to you about what you think. This printed out very purple or very brown, but to me, looking at this picture on a screen, it looked very lovely bluey purpley colours. And that was the overall sort of colour cast I want over the whole thing. So that's why I'm going this underpainting colour. I wouldn't go too heavy on that because you want to be able to see your tracing on top of it. And say you were working in oils, for example, oils only really likes pencil on top of it, if it's thin paint anyway. So, this kind of tone here would be ideal because you can still see a really dark color on top of it, so your drawing doesn't get lost. But that would be something that you do before you transfer the drawing on, and you let that dry and then you transfer the drawing. And this drawing doesn't then go to waste either. That one gets pinned up on a wall while you're working, and that provides another reference point for you to work from. So it helps keep you from feeling like you're getting too lost as you go along doing the painting. You have lots of props there to help you through the painting process. So that's basically it. They were the two missing bits. The how do you measure things to get everything in the right place? Um, then